I'm Chris Farrell, and this is On Watch. I want to take a moment today to talk to you about what really amounted to be about a sentence on a Lou Dobbs Tonight show a couple days ago, but really requires a much broader explanation. In that show, I was talking to Lou about the Manafort trial and the efforts to squeeze him, and of course he's being treated as though he's a serial killer, drug cartel kingpin, right? He's in 23 hours of isolation. They did this crazy early morning raid on his house. There's a lot of pressure being applied to Manafort, and the reason why they're doing that, and look, I have no sympathy for Mr. Manafort. He has his own set of problems going back to 2004, 2006, but they have virtually nothing. In fact, they have nothing to do with the 2016 campaign. And so what I believe is Mr. Mueller is really aggressively exercising his authority to squeeze Manafort in the hopes that he says something or coughs up some incriminating evidence about Mr. Trump, perhaps Donald Trump Jr., the campaign, whatever it is that he's looking for. There's a lot of pressure being applied to him. And so why is that important? What does that have to do with the effort to really, I think, undermine and attack not just President Trump personally, but also his entire administration? So here's some backstory. Here's some things you need to think about. A lot of the pressure, a lot of the attention has to do with a June 9th, 2016 meeting at Trump Tower. And that meeting at Trump Tower had Donald Trump Jr., Manafort, I think Mr. Kushner was there, and a few other aides. My recollection is that there were no attorneys present in the room. And then into the room comes this rather shadowy, ambiguous character, Veselnitskaya, that's the female Russian attorney, who supposedly showed up to discuss one of two things, depending upon who you listen to and who you believe. One was the Magnitsky Act, which had to do with sanctions against Russia with respect to human rights issues, adoption issues, et cetera. It's a separate topic altogether. I'm not going to go there. And the second was this allegation that Veselnitskaya and her group were going to offer dirt, whatever that is, about Hillary Clinton and her campaign to Donald Trump Jr. and Manafort and others that were in the room. So let's be clear for a second. Let's slow down and let's examine this. So Veselnitskaya is a character, a Russian attorney who, depending upon which interview you listen to of her, and NBC News has done some interviews of her, she either was an independent solo operator just trying to do good and reach out and, you know, engage in sort of liaison, or she was a agent of the Russian government acting in a semi-official or official capacity, and this goes to the whole crazy Russian collusion story. And so what really happened, and I think this is incredibly important, is Veselnitskaya shows up at that meeting on the 9th of June at Trump Tower, and by everyone's claims on both sides of the meeting and anybody who had knowledge of it, essentially nothing happened. It was a waste of time. In fact, I think that's what Donald Trump Jr. called it under oath, was a waste of time. And so there was nothing of any substance that was either offered, exchanged, discussed. And so you say, well, why in the world would somebody set up a meeting, go to that meeting, and then have it be kind of a fizzled flop? What's the point? Here's what you need to pay attention to. Guess who Veselnitskaya met with the day before the meeting at Trump Tower? Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS. That matters. Guess who she met with the day after the meeting at Trump Tower? Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS. So in the intelligence world, and that's my background from many moons ago, that has a particular terminology associated with it. That's called dispatch and recovery. And so as a case officer running someone up against a foreign service or against an opponent, in the dispatch meeting, you review, okay, look, this is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to say, this is what we're looking for, see if they'll discuss A, B, and C. You essentially task the source and you review sort of all the operational details before that source is launched against the target. That's the dispatch meeting. To me, that appears to be the 8th of June meeting in New York with Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS and Veselnitskaya. So there's the dispatch meeting. Then there's the meeting at Trump Tower, which turns out to be a big nothing, according to all the parties involved. And then the day after, on the 10th, purportedly down here in Washington, D.C., there's another meeting with Veselnitskaya and Fusion GPS chief Glenn Simpson. That's the recovery part of the operation. And so in that meeting, you debrief the source. What happened? Who was there? What did they say? All the sort of basic interrogatives that anyone would want to know, having engaged in this operational activity. And so let's step back even to a higher level and look at the entire operation. Veselnitskaya is essentially a walk-in. This is somebody who appears or shows up on the scene and is offering information or wishing to engage and with somebody to find out, hey, I've got information, what can you tell me? They're looking for some sort of a back and forth. In the intelligence world, a walk-in is always treated with extreme caution because you don't really know what they are, right? They could be everything from somebody who legitimately is wishing to provide legitimate intelligence, who wants to work for the United States and provide us intelligence information. It could be somebody who's basically an intelligence peddler, somebody who comes in and they really don't have anything substantive, but they have a great story kind of wrapping around or embroidering one little nugget of truth. And frankly, they're looking to get paid, right? They want money or they want some favor, maybe they want a visa. There's always some sort of an exchange or a bartering going on. Then there's another phase of it. Sometimes you have a walk-in who's a wacko. They're well-intentioned, or maybe they're not well-intentioned, but they're weird. And for whatever reason, they're drawn to, or they feel it's like a moth to a flame, right? They can't resist trying to engage with people because it makes them feel important, or it fulfills some weird delusional fantasy they have. But that's another aspect of a walk-in. And then lastly, and this is the most extreme version, and it's not the case here, but sometimes you have a walk-in and they've got a vest on wired to explode, and they want to blow up you in your office. And so there's a full spectrum with respect to walk-ins, and that's why they're always treated with great caution, because it may be legit, it may be worthwhile, and it could be something that's just totally crazy or even dangerous. That's the sort of category, in my opinion, that Veselnitskaya presents herself at this Trump Tower meeting. Now, why they agreed to meet with her, what the hope was, I think there was a curiosity and interest, but the net result of all this was a zero. So, maybe there was a hope that there was some interesting information. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe there was this Magnitsky Act question. That the details of that, frankly, don't matter. But from an overview point of view, she's a walk-in, and she's offering this information. But you don't know where she's coming from. Is she an agent of the Russian government? Is she not? That's a big question. From the Fusion GPS side of this thing, she's dispatched, she makes the meeting, and then she's recovered, and then debriefs. This is classic, the Soviet era term would be agitprop, agitation propaganda. It doesn't matter what she said or did in that meeting, what she offered, whether it was a value or a waste of time or anything else. From the perspective of Fusion GPS, all they want is this murky Russian attorney meeting with Trump people. That's all they're looking for. And so they had mission accomplished when she walked in the door, shook hands, said hello, and sat down. From their perspective, in this sort of information operation to generate this hysteria, they're just looking to establish a Russian contact. And they were successful from that perspective because we're still talking about it. I'm here today trying to explain to you the techniques that were involved in trying to generate hysteria over a non-event. And so you have an agent provocateur, you have Veselnitskaya, somebody who's coming in to provoke, to create a sort of tension or crisis or problem. This agent provocateur uses a walk-in type meeting to talk to officials and close associates of then candidate Trump. The event occurs. It turns out to be a big nothing by everyone's account. Everyone kind of walks away disgusted. But Fusion GPS gets what they're looking for. They get a shadowy Russian attorney in a secret meeting at Trump Tower. And so let the hysteria begin, and let the spinning and the double talk go on and on and on. And then when questioned later by the Senate Judiciary Committee, Glenn Simpson suddenly develops a form of amnesia. Well, he's not entirely sure, and the dates may have been this or that, and well, yeah, we did meet on the 8th, and yeah, we did meet on the 10th, and there was a meeting at Trump Tower on the 9th, but we didn't discuss that, which is preposterous, right? That doesn't pass the giggle test. You have this Russian attorney going in and meeting with the candidates, senior representatives, and somehow you're supposed to believe that that wasn't a topic or a subject of conversation. It's implausible, it's unbelievable, but it's important that you see this from a perspective other than what, you get either 8-second sound bites or you get media spin around this. You need to look at it as an intelligence operation. You've got an opposition entity, Fusion GPS and Glenn Simpson, who have ginned up this phony dossier, by Christopher Steele, who are feeding this information through Fusion GPS employee Nellie Orr, wife of Bruce Orr, at the time the number 4 guy over at the Justice Department. So they're feeding this information into the system to generate this Russia hysteria, and then you have this orchestrated meeting where there's a Fusion GPS Veselnitskaya meeting on the 8th. On the 9th, she goes into Trump Tower. On the 10th, she comes out and gets debriefed by Fusion GPS. She's a shadowy figure who's changed her story repeatedly as to what exactly she was doing and who she works for. There's this contact with senior officials. From the outside, from just the optics of what went on, it provides the perfect opportunity to let Fusion GPS, wave their arms and scream, because they've created this perception that they can then wave around in the press about secret meetings with Russians, and it's all based on nothing. It's all kabuki theater. It's an orchestrated, elaborate, hyper-sensitized event which has little or no substance underneath it. But from the perspective of Fusion GPS, it's just another exhibit in the portfolio or the dossier of, aha, see? And so, what you see is an abuse of the criminal justice system on the part of Mr. Mueller and his prosecutors. I'm not saying they don't have a legitimate, legal question with respect to Manafort's banking and tax stuff, but that is literally a decade before the 2016 election. But they're going to squeeze Manafort, hoping he says, oh yeah, we were hoping to get this and that, and this person said whatever. It's an effort to incriminate. And so when the full weight of the Justice Department and the FBI comes down on you, and they squeeze you in the way that they are with Mr. Manafort, you have to walk it back and say, well, why are they doing this? What's the real objective? And look, it's been demonstrated now, it's quite clear, whether it's Mueller, Comey, Strzok, McCabe, the entire, Stop Trump gang, Lisa Page, a handful of others, right? Essentially the leadership of the FBI at the time. They've all got an agenda and a motive, and they've got these connections via Bruce Orr in the Justice Department out to his wife Nellie Orr, who's at Fusion GPS. This is really an interesting circuit or a web of creating and generating the perception of some sort of wrongdoing. And then all they're looking for is the contact. Veselnitskaya could have gone into the meeting and told fairy tales or sang a song. It didn't matter. They just wanted her in contact and then out so they could point at it and scream. That's the way to look at this, and that's the way to understand what's really going on. And when you ask difficult questions and you kind of try to peel back reality versus what's going on with respect to the media reporting, this is a level of discernment that you need to know. Look at it as an intelligence operation. An agent provocateur as a walk-in in an effort to generate a crisis. It's agitation propaganda. It's Saul Alinsky on steroids. It's very sharp people who know how to manipulate the media and create a problem. And it's all orchestrated. It's all linked. So if you're looking for Russian collusion, whatever that is, or let's use the right word, conspiracy, if you're looking for persons who are sending money to Russian operatives in an effort to steer an election, which is criminal, you look no further than Hillary Clinton and the DNC, who financed this entire operation, who orchestrated it. So Mr. Mueller, I encourage you to kind of flip the coin around the other way if you're capable of doing so, because I've just demonstrated for you and explained in no uncertain terms exactly what the sequence was to this sort of non-official intelligence operation seeking to generate a crisis at the paid expense of Hillary Clinton and the DNC in an effort to steer an election. And when you look at it from that perspective, I think you have a whole new appreciation for what's really going on, whether it's in a courtroom in Alexandria, Virginia, or at Trump Tower, or in the swamp here in DC. So I hope you found that interesting. I hope that gives you a new perspective on exactly what's going on and what the real motives are behind all this, because I think those facts are so important, and the timeline and the associations, this gives you an understanding that I hope you didn't have before. I'm Chris Farrell on Watch.